Hi, 6th grade. Welcome to another math video. Today we're going to be talking about multiplying by the reciprocal and how that relates to dividing fractions. So we're going to take a look here, and these are just some examples of if I were to ask you to multiply by the reciprocal of a fraction, this is what it would look like. So in our first problem we see 3/4, and we are multiplying 3/4 by its reciprocal, which is 4/3. All that means is that we have flipped the numerator and the denominator. And so we see that with 3/4 times 4/3. We also see it in 5/6 times 6/5. And whenever you multiply by a reciprocal, it always is going to equal 1. Always. Okay, so that's just a quick reminder. So here are three fractions, one whole number, and if I were to ask you to write the reciprocals of these numbers, you would write, for 5/8, you would write 8/5. For 7/3, you would write 3/7. For 1/4, you would just write 4, because if you flipped that, the 4 would be the numerator and 1 would be the denominator. And remember, whenever you have a 1 as the denominator, it basically just cancels out and you are simply left with a whole number. And then 9, remember 9 is technically 9 over 1, and so if we flipped that and wrote the reciprocal, it would be 1/9. All right, let's take a look at this word problem. So this word problem says, Mrs. Olivia made 3 apple cakes for a bake sale at a local retirement center. If 1/12 of a cake is a serving, how many servings of the apple cake can be sold? Okay, we're going to take this word problem and we're first going to solve it using division. Okay, so in this case, we're wanting to figure out how many 1/12 size servings are in 3 apple cakes. So we would write it 3 divided by 1/12. So why don't you go ahead and solve this division problem. Pause the video and solve 3 divided by 1/12. Good job. Okay, so hopefully the answer that you came up with after doing the division was 36. You can get 36 servings. Now, I want you to just kind of set that aside for a minute. We're going to come back to this division problem and help it to understand the next part of what we're going to do, which is multiplying by a reciprocal. So go ahead and write this down in your journal. Dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the divisor. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the divisor. Okay, so let me explain that. So here we have 3 divided by 1/12. So what we just wrote, what I just had you write in your notes, is that this division problem can also be solved by doing this. We can multiply 3 by the reciprocal of the divisor, which in this case the divisor is 1/12. So we're going to multiply 3 by the reciprocal of 1/12. So we now have written 3 times 12 over 1. Okay, and now we can just do our multiplication. We can multiply straight across. Okay, so 3 times 12 is 36 over 1, would just give us 36. Okay, so we have now done this division problem of 3 divided by 1/12. We have solved it by using multiplication, by using the reciprocal of the divisor. So let's try another one. Here we have 16 divided by 4. So I know you guys can all just do that in your head. You know that 16 divided by 4 is going to give us 4. Okay, so let's check and make sure that we can actually find that same answer by using multiplication. So we're going to rewrite that problem as 16 times 1/4. 1/4 is the reciprocal of 4. Then we're going to multiply straight across. 16 times 1 is going to give us 16. 1 times 4 is going to give us 4. And 4 into 16 gives you 4. Okay, let's try another one. Here's another word problem. Mrs. Olivia made 3 sheet cakes for a wedding reception. If 1/96th of a cake is a serving, how many servings of the cake can be served? Okay, so this is similar to the last word problem that we did. So we want to figure out how many 1/96 servings are in 3 sheet cakes. So we're going to first set it up as a division problem, which would look like this. Okay, and then we're going to set it up as a multiplication problem, which would look like this. Okay, we have written the reciprocal of 196, which is 96 over 1. So now we're going to multiply straight across. Go ahead and take a minute, and I want you to pause the video, and I want you to figure out how many servings of these 3 sheet cakes can be served. Good job. Okay, so this was kind of a big amount if you did the multiplication, but you just had to multiply 96 times 3, and that should have given you 288, okay, over 1, which just equals 288 servings. Okay, one more word problem. I want you guys to go ahead and read this, and I want you to set it up on your own and solve this one in your journal. Okay, let's take a look at it together. So after the bake sale, Mrs. Olivia had 7/12 of 1 apple cake left over. She divided the remaining cake equally among 3 bake sale volunteers. How many pieces of cake did each volunteer receive? So you should have set it up. First is a division problem, 7/12 divided by 3. And then as a multiplication problem, 7/12 times 1/3. And you do your multiplication. 7 times 1 gives you 7, and 12 times 3 gives you 36. So 7/36 of the cake is what the volunteer received. Okay, now we're going to move on. In our problems up to this point, we have just been doing our multiplication by the reciprocal using whole numbers, and now we are going to be using fractions for both parts of the equation. So it's going to look something like this. 9/10 divided by 3/5. Now this type of problem should look very familiar. This is what we've been doing for the last few days. But instead of solving it by dividing, we're going to practice what we've been doing in this video, which we are going to solve it by multiplying by the reciprocal. So we are rewriting it as 9/10 times 5/3. Now remember, one way to simplify is to do cancellation. And in this case, we can do some cancellation. It's going to help us out a lot. So first, let's take a look at 9 and 3. So we can cancel out 9 and 3 is the common factor. 3 goes into itself once, and it goes into 9 3 times. We can also cancel between 5 and 10, and 5 goes into itself once and into 10 twice. Now we can multiply straight across. 3 times 1 is 3, and 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? All right. Now we as always, we need to always make sure that our fraction is written in lowest terms. And in this case, it was not, because 3/2 is an improper fraction. So we're going to reduce that by turning it into a mixed number, and our final answer is 1 1/2. Okay, let's take a look at this problem. So we have 2/3 divided by 4. So we are going to rewrite that as a multiplication problem. 4 becomes 1/4, so we now have 2/3 times 1/4. We're going to cancel again. 2 goes into itself once and 4 twice. 3 and 1, you can't do any canceling there, so we're just going to multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, and 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, here are 3 practice problems that I would like for you to do in your journal. I would like for you to begin with them as division problems, and I would like for you to rewrite them as multiplication by the reciprocal problems. Okay, let's go ahead and work through them together. So 1/3 divided by 3/4 is going to become 1/3 times 4/3. 7 divided by 5/8 becomes 7/1 times 8/5. And 3/8 divided by 15 becomes 3/8 times 1/15. Now we're going to multiply straight across. We'll start back with 1/3 times 4/3, and we get 4/9. 7/1 times 8/5 becomes 56/5. And that is an improper fraction, so you should have reduced it, and your mixed number should be 11 1/5. And finally, we have 3/8 times 1/15. We can do some canceling there. Hopefully you canceled. 3 goes into itself once, and 15 5 times. 1 times 1 is 1, and 8 times 5 is 40. Okay, great job. That is the end of our video for today. Your assignment for tonight is obviously your video notes, and then also on page 174 you have 3 practice problems, number 1, 5, and 7. Hope you guys have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow.